It was a time. It was a time. Hello, perceptive reader. This is James, and you can place this discussion under one of the sages categories. If you've listened to some of my books or read some of them, it was a time, or there was a time. Let me share something with you. Uh, there was once one sage. There was another person that was wise, really on the level of a sage, but because one of the persons happened to be older, he yielded the title, if you will, and you can go into the definement of what I've said about sages over the years. So, the yielding of the title of the sage, the one that could make the final decision, was actually going to the older one. Where anyway, there was another person involved as well, uh, with the discussion that was going on about this younger person's life. And one of the things that they observed or knew about that person, it's interesting how you heard me mention in past podcasts where a lot of people have an agenda. And when I use that expression, agenda, it doesn't always mean, because of the way that it's used, that it's in a negative way. It's actually just we have an agenda, or I have an agenda to do something good. It's just that when a lot of negative stuff start to happen around the agenda, then when it comes to altercations, you will hear one person say to the other, "Oh, that person just has an agenda." And so when you hear it expressed in that way, you know it has a negative connotation with it. Well, there was an observation made by the sage and this other wise person about this individual who was younger than them. And they noticed that it was a lot of conflict that was happening here and there with this individual. And they really didn't know why. They didn't know why. Why? Because every time they had their interactions with this younger individual, they just had no problem at all. And the way that this younger individual expressed themselves to the sages, it was almost like they call it the maturity on the sages part. It call it their experiences for themselves, that they knew something about people in general. And what is that? That people have personalities. People have personalities. People have quirks. And so they were of the maturity level that even when they saw these persons and their other expressions or personalities, and see, this is what I want to emphasize. Even if it was something that would be going against some written rule or maybe a principle, the sages, they still knew, well, and I'm not gonna go into what would be expressed further about the well. But see, the whole point is they were taking life still from another outlook. One, they knew in the end of all matters, things were going to work out one way or the other. So they weren't going to get bent out of shape. Two, they knew that in any avenue or time during a person's life, that patience just has to be applied there in this way or that way. Yet there was an aspect of the personality that they both noticed about this person and the way that they had an outlook on matters. They knew that no matter that no matter what difficulties come up, altercations or what have you, they knew that this person, and okay, you always have to yield to where this is this person's opinion, that is that person's opinion, or what have you. But they knew that this person had an accurate way of at least looking at matters to the point of if something broke out, you see, the person may say straight up that, yes, this happened because I just don't like you or I just don't like this. And that's just the way that they would say it. They wouldn't even try to cover up why they don't like the person. So then, you could go from here or there. And that's something that these sages respected. Now, I'm sharing this with you for a reason. I'll give you the background because this is what I found out in life, and it was something about me reading the good book, the Holy Bible, where you see a lot of persons who at times who were going through altercations and they were upset, they were yelling, they were crying, they were doing all sorts of things. See that's all in the Bible, and yeah, what I want to share about those instances, because you hear people even do it today, and I know I've certainly done it as well. Persons in their upsetness, in their wild talk, as the good book would even say, will actually mention nobody cares about me. Nobody cares about me. Even though that's not the case, you see, and I'm not going to say there are different environments you can get in where it's almost like, yeah, at least in this environment, at least in this room or whatever, yeah, nobody care about you. But the whole point is when persons make those expressions at times about nobody cares about me, I was here to let you know that there are people, most likely somewhere, that you may not even know about. That you may not even know about. That they're still functioning on a different level. That, I would say those sages that I was telling you about that conversation had at times where uh, some people, they just function in a different way of resolving matters. And granted, in our frustration, in our anguish and things of that nature, which remember I always say this again, that the Bible allows for that. The expressing that nobody care about me, or what have you, that God allows for that. And so that's why, on one hand, when we're learning how to handle matters in this way or that way, we try to be as what cordial as possible. We try to be as professional as possible, etc. Yeah, this is what I want to tell you along with those thoughts. You know, one of the things that the sage had mentioned one time, and and what I'm about to share with you, I shared on one other podcast some years ago, and it was also shared with very few people. Okay, so they may remember it or what have you, but they had mentioned one time to this younger person that there is a test that an individual will be put through at times that it just never stops. it never stops at all. And so the question was, well, how do you get out of it? And these sages even admitted it to the younger person that even though they could have gone on even a little bit longer, they knew the only way that it practically was going to end up for them. So what did they do? They went on ahead and failed, so to speak, at least according to their eyes, so that finally all that what was happening would stop, even though they still had more in them. But they just say, for what? That was at least where their mind was at, or what have you. Now keep this in mind. Well, it was a movie that came out some years ago called "The Scent of a Woman." The Scent of a Woman, and it actually made me think about that story or the account that I just shared with you about the sages because of the fact when it was a court scene where the way that this colonel, who was now actually, uh, he got all his VA and everything else because he was now blind, from something that happened on one of his missions. And so either way, he was taken care of, but he was still very self sufficient, even as a blind person with a cane. But still, he could request help here or there from universities or what have you. And the military, they took care of it. The VA and everything was taken care of, and he had his own money, and once again, in other words, he didn't want for nothing, at least financially, okay, or even physically, okay. Now, during that court case, though, that he started expressing, making thoughts about leadership. Now, I'm not going to tell you what that court case was about because I advise you just to watch that movie, A Scent of a Woman. I advise you to watch it. Uh, it's been on regular TV. I haven't seen, well, you know me, I don't watch regular TV that much at all. And I always say again, it's not because I chose not to. I'm always doing something or researching and creating something, writing something. But all the same, he made a statement. He made a statement about this person that they were now charging was at a crossroads in their life because there were just certain things that he was about to be expelled from this school of leadership, etc. And so all of a sudden, this, you see, now retired colonel, you see, um, stood up and started expressing things about this person's character. And he was mentioning that in his life, he had faced, he was at a crossroads that he didn't, now at this age he already knew that he was saying basically he didn't make the right decision. And he had mentioned the reason why he didn't make the right decision was because it was just too hard for him to make the right decision. And so he was even admitting to the situation of this younger now person they were speaking up to, that he knew the way all the judgments and everything that was going across him, he knew they just wasn't right. And so it was a very fiery, yes. Uh, uh, I can't call him a defendant. I can't call him a an attorney or prosecutor or what have you. But he was still sitting with him in front the school court or board, if you will, as a character reference a witness, and the reason why he could do that is because already look at all the authority that he had already earned in his career, and that he was at least for that weekend supposed to be taking care of him for guess what, the holidays. Well, anyway, I share that with you. One, A Scent of a Woman. I think you'll find it a very interesting movie. But I share it with you that as well because the story that I just shared with you about the two sages or what have you. See, that is actually an older story than that. Yet the thread, if you will, the quantum string, if you will, that caused me to put that together was because it was almost like the same mode, the same um um Al Pacino. I think that yeah, I'm pretty sure. Maybe I need to look that up. Um, on who was really the lead actor in that show. I haven't watched it in a while. The whole movie I haven't seen in some time since the last time I saw it on TV, I believe. The whole movie at one, setting. But the whole point is those expressions that he made caused me to still reference back to this other story that I told you about that was even older than that. You see, some older than that. The show that even though these persons wouldn't have known each other from Adam, quite possibly, I really don't think so at all. How these persons could have had the same similar experiences in life that caused them to be so wise, caused them to be sages, if you will, and caused them to even be understanding of the youth and what people go through as to why they move in life the way that they do, and how they have come to complete understanding that yes, life is messy sometimes. But what these older and wise men knew is that still all the same, persons' lives should not be ruined forever from bad blood and altercations of that nature. But I just wanted to share with you it was a time. It was a time, and it seemed to still be like now, where you do have individuals and you'll feel like, great day, nobody care about me at all. And they're just actually really functioning in what they have found with their knowledge, with that's the way the world works at times, where I know the way that they look at it, and I've observed some of these sages, as you know, the way they look at it, they still feel because of the way that they're moving right now, it is still more in a better way for not only your situation, but still their situation. You see what I'm saying? In order, to at least make the best of a situation. Anyway, thank you for being with me. Have a very wonderful day. Take care, Perceptive Reader.